The poet's history, his story, my story, first told tentatively on cave walls, actions painted the color of excitement, brushes dripping breathless after the hunt, man kill food, man feel good, then came moonlight. Tempting tall tales at the fire, sending my fellow nomads wandering the land of imagination for once, forgetting their feet and drifting into mind dreams. Dawn brought bards belting ballads, epics, legends leaping off their tongues until breathing caught up with them and they had to briefly pause, then continue. Birthing stanzaic verse. Before meters, syllables, and lines, prehistoric poetry was measured in moments. Man unable to control his emotions, so he bled them out and watched them come back to life again, twinkling in the eyes of others, flowing in their hearts. This is poetic history. His story, our story.
I know the history of poetry by heart. I can tell you our story offhand. I retrace the history of my ancestors with my fingertips. Each digit is a dynamic style of writing. Each thought ignites a scene. Chiseled pictograms on withered stones and caves, flickering flames illuminating a bird's song. Ink bleeding into parchment and quiz dancing on old scrolls. The story of poetry is etched deep into our human existence. This is the history of my ancestors in my palms. Like my thumb, the grip of a poem stands stout, lines running as from north to south. It hooks you in and dispels all doubts. Like a great tree, though the surface might seem like a single shoot, its roots run deep, bearing hidden fruits. Pointing sharp like my index finger, my poem points in your direction, casting my message directly at you. But oftentimes you forget that the other finger are just pointing back towards me. While my poem might sound like an attack on your personality, what's a message without a recipient? Third is my middle finger, stuck up like I want to use the F word, only that I would rather invert that to form an he, because we don't use scurrilous words here. My word stands tall, having a piece for everyone, being the middle balance for both good and evil, for both wholeness and illness, for both hate and love, for which a ring might just hang on my ring finger. Because you are not yet a poet until you can feel and express love and heartbreaks in a perfect oxymoron. You see, a poet is beautifully broken. Our pieces with you are a token to remind you that you were once here. You can't spell dislike without like, just as you can't pronounce it without remembering the taste of my love melting like butter and ice down your throat. Least but lovely is my pinky frail, yet on the days of chaos it doesn't fail. For poems rise strongly when all is rent, a fragile strength when life gives dent. For dark days you can say poetry is heaven sent, and this is how I hatch each verse. This is the heart of how I craft each rhyme. These are the whispers of the poet's history through time, the words left unsaid, the mortars held within, the genesis of how all poems begin, and this is how we tell our story.
The poet history. This is a story, their history, and my story. In the beginning of the beginning, words stand as instrument of word and happiness, painted in black and white and printed in stones, hidden behind the shadow of proverbs and idioms. Sweat and blood of heroes imprinted on the ground, now painted on canvas of words, telling a story, sharing their story. Under the moonlight, talked about the tales, married the France birthing epic poetry of the legends who fought like gods, wonders of supernatural beings. Then there came into existence the white swans, in their minds, wide imaginations driven into subconsciousness of themselves, to bring mouth-watering story to all. Then there came the light of books, words imprinted on slate, for who to read, for who to hear, drawing on canvas full of colorful images, embedded with emotions that only the wise can tell. Now birthing words into lines, stanzas, verses, like a sweet song to the ear, a beautiful sight to behold. Holding us in embrace are words now coming out from the mouth of legends, a two-edged sword, making us alive again, reminding us of who we are, where we started from, and where we are going. Their history now, our story.
From the intelligible words of the philosophers to spells of the prophets on earth, Poets whose words are made and others that make their world. Poetry through blood and sand. Poetry where we all Shakespeare's. Poetry through Emily Dickinson, juxtaposing religious oppositions. Haikus in the belly of Masho Basho. It shows the paradigm of the overflow, Earth's transient glory, and the lips of these poets rewrites our stories.
This history of poetry screams modernism. On the tongues and hands of man are bold utterances of words to tell stories. Unlike carvings on the wall, to man, poetry is a breath of life. When words have failed, the scribblings on the wall has turned to bold words written on papers. But this boldness demand exists on papers to some through their voices. Hopefully, the world hears it. This poetry, this poets, this man, and now that need to be heard, now cultured to voices. The history of man, this heritage and pride, this silent voice louder than ever. This modernity is now a culture of man, a never-growing voice of poetry. And this is our story.
Happy World Poetry Day 2024! Viva Literacy!